What's up, Instagram family? What's up, Truther team? Welcome, welcome. Amy Rosary Wilding here, holistic health practitioner and movement as medicine. Guys, tonight we have an awesome chat for you guys. I'm so excited about this. I'm going to be interviewing one of my idols, Amanda Vollmer. You might be familiar with her. She has been one of the most prominent voices in this truth movement, and she's just a wealth of knowledge. And I really love how she has this ability to weave her kind of her sense of humor and her common sense practicality into all kinds of topics, whether it's about health or disease or common law or natural law or spirituality or personal development. She's just she's a wealth of knowledge. So we're going to bring her on here now. Now we're connecting. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Amy. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks so much for
Good.
joining us tonight for this chat. So,
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
yeah. So to give you a proper introduction, as I said, you're one of the most prominent voices in the truth movement right now. Amanda holds a degree of Doctor of Naturopathic Medicine. She is an herbalist. She is an author and a healer. I've got her book right here, Healing with DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide. And she also owns an incredible store called Yum Naturals. She wildcrafts and hand makes all kinds of incredible body care products and remedies and also baby care products. You're just a total powerhouse and an alchemist and a huge inspiration to me. So really stoked to have you on this chat tonight.
Thanks. That's so nice that we got to do this. And I'm not as familiar with this particular platform, but it's really it's quite nice to use all the different apps.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. Looks like Amanda's frozen here. See if she caught. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, all the little the tricks of all the new platforms, right? Um,
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
so my followers are, for the most part, up to speed with terrain theory. I'm sure there's some of them that haven't quite had the chance to sort of dive into it. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that. Initially, when I first found you, you were doing an interview. This was back in March, right at the beginning of all the madness. And you were talking about healing with DMSO. And in the middle of the interview, the interviewer asked you what your thoughts were on everything. And you just really blew me away with everything that you said. And basically everything has come true as well, all the things that you had said, and particularly the way that you described a flu. And you called it a flu expression. And just adding that one word after it really made something kind of click for me. And I started thinking about it like, okay, my body's having this flu expression. And it's natural and normal and necessary to go through. And it's actually a sign that your body's actually in a really good state, that you're actually able to go through this flu expression. And that it's actually a very good thing, because you're cleaning out the toxicity, that dead and decaying matter that's built up over time in our ever increasing toxic world. So I really appreciate you, explaining it that way. So I feel like the real pandemic here is essentially a fundamental, widespread misunderstanding of disease and of how the body works and what a flu is. So let's dive into that. Maybe you can explain why we don't need to fear the natural world and we don't need to fear an invisible virus.
Shh, right? Well, it's true. And the education has been, I've been in this business, if you will, or in this as a healer for, my whole life, but really focused in the last 20 years on what's really going on. And, myself, I had to undo a lot of conditioning and a lot of training. I was trained in science and a lot of it was wrong. And I was always open-minded and I was always seeking. And I think that's where you need to be if you really want to get through all the the politics and the misinformation. You have to come back to yourself. You have to go inward, and you have to go through into source and really connect with yourself. So there's that. And then you need to allow yourself to be open-minded. You need to suspend what you think you know. And I think
Amanda's connection maybe is just getting interrupted. We'll see if she can jump back on.
Therefore, you're coming back on there. You just kind of disappeared for a second.
Yeah, okay. We lost you there.
Maybe your internet's not that happy with you right now.
Yeah.
Unless it's mine. I don't know.
Well, I'm on data.
But anyway, so the main thing that I started to understand that if you're not always seeking truth, then you're not going to be able to
shoot. I'm wondering if Amanda,
I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. Hey, sorry. I think it might be on your end, Amanda. I popped over to data for this chat. So I don't know if you're able to take it off Wi-Fi and do like your cell phone data.
Oh, okay.
That might help. I don't know. Hey guys, thanks for waiting on here while we get Amanda. There we go. Got you back.
Yeah, what I did is I got off my wireless and I'm just operating on my phone plan now. So I'm just going to do a do not disturb for a second, make sure that's not interrupting. And so maybe that's interrupting stream. So anyway, this is why Insta, I don't know, right, with phones and stuff. So, but anyway, I think what I was saying there is being open-minded always, right? Not ever being rigid in what you think you know and being stuck, and just, okay, can you suspend what you think you know for a minute and have a new idea? Can you entertain a new idea for a minute? You don't have to believe it. You don't have to subscribe to it, but it's an exercise in having plasticity of your mind, of your brain. Can you think a new thought, or do you think you know everything? And that's just ego. And I think a lot of what we're seeing is an ego-based situation where people just think they know because, somebody's grandmother had polio and therefore it's polio and it's a virus and that's it. And they're not going to question it. That's just ego. They're just stuck, right? But if you can start to be open-minded and think, well, maybe I was wrong, maybe, are you okay with being wrong? Then you can begin to learn new information and open your mind to the fact that, this is not how disease works. When our bodies are toxic, we need to get the toxins out. It's actually very simple. It's way more simple than some sort of thing floating around waiting to attack us and coming through it, whether it goes this way or that way or whatever. I mean, it amazes me that people can't follow through the thought all the way to the end, because that means it's either contagious or it's not. So you either get it or you don't, or else if you don't get it, then there's conditions in which you don't get it. And if there's conditions in which you don't get it, then that means what you do to yourself has an effect on whether you get it or not, right? Otherwise, everyone would just get it. So right there, the whole contagion thing is a little bit off, right? And then if you eat well and you make sure your biochemistry is present and you make sure your detox organs are eliminating properly and working properly, why would you need to go through the symptoms? You only need the symptoms to express the wastes and to alert the body that there's a problem. But if you prevent the problem in the first place by ensuring that all the right nutrition is there and that the organs are working properly, there's no requirement of the body to create those symptoms at all. So and there's a question there in the chat about a German new medicine, and I just wanted to touch on that quickly while that question came up, because it is important. It's important to understand that our emotions can cause disease states, and that actually it's completely ignored that the emotions in the mind can cause actual physical and biochemical problems in the body. And it's alarming to me that the medical establishment wholly ignores mental and emotional causes of diseases. Not only do they wholly ignore that, they actually ignore a complete lineage in our body of cells called somatids that have a 16-stage cycle that is well documented. And that alarms me to no end as well, because you know why? If they subscribe to any of these awarenesses, any of these truths, then their germ theories in the garbage, then their drug theories in the garbage, then their vaccine theories in the garbage, then their virus causing a disease theories in the garbage. And they have built up their illusions so strongly that if they dare challenge it, they have identified their ego with that knowledge, and therefore they would feel like they would die. They would feel that they wouldn't be able to overcome what they've done to themselves, right? So they're locked in, they're stuck in a paradigm, and they will probably die with that paradigm, most of them. But we're in a paradigm shift, as Thomas Kuhn described. We're in a scientific revolution and in a paradigm shift. We're in the midst of it, like literally right now, we are at the crux of a paradigm shift that was predicted long ago. And it took a lie, this viral lie, to get it going. 3 or 4 years ago, I started talking about there's no viruses before all this obviously began. And the reason was that I started going, wait a second, I'm studying isopathy, I'm studying homeopathy. I'm understanding that the terrain needs to be a specific pH, and it needs to be electrochemically communicating in order for health and wellness to be present. So what's this viral thing all about then? Or what's even a bacterial thing about? And I started to go deeper into isopathy and also German new medicine. And I went, wait, this is not working. The two can't be mutually entwined. It doesn't work. So one's got to be wrong. And then I went back and found Dr. Stefan Lenka's work, and I found Gaston Nason's work, and I started to uncover the history, like of the lie, and of Pasteur being a fraud and plagiarist, and books that exploded the truth about what he really was, and the politics of disease. And I said, oh, okay, this is what's going on. There's an agenda. I already knew about the cancer agenda, with the Flexner report, and also the making doctors have to go through their schools, and the medicalizing of the doctors only to chemicals, and destroying holistic practitioners and all of that, destroying the homeopathic hospitals that were all throughout Europe, and on, and then burying the evidence of the history. So it's hard for us to find it, just like what they're doing now. They're censoring us now. I was deplatformed. Many of my colleagues were deplatformed, right? So here we are, like, we have to face the music now. And we are, because look at how many of us are talking about it. And I was like some lonely voice 3 or 4 years ago talking about viruses don't exist. And then look at us now, right? So we're getting there, and the evidence is mounting. So it's really an exciting time, as much as it's a very warped, macabre kind of time too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like, myself, I might have had like a tiny bit of a head start with understanding all of this stuff, because in my life, I had health issues that the medical industry, failed me in, like, figuring out. So I had to dig into the research, and I had to learn about the body and learn about how it works, and learn about natural remedies, and had to teach myself, essentially. So then when I started hearing about the terrain theory, and how much more sense it made, right? I think I've seen a meme that goes something like, if the germ theory model of disease was correct, then no one would be around to believe it, because we would all be dead, because they're everywhere. They're a part of us. They're all over us. And the work of Dr. Skip Virgil, who you might be familiar with, he talked about the virome, and that we literally just have viruses inside of us all the time. It's just a part of us. And so it's only when we go out of balance that, they maybe start to present themselves, right? Like a bacterial infection, or a viral flu, etc. Right? So even like the whole microbial kingdom. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Klinghardt, And he even talks about, when parasites are trying to find their home, they'll only take up residence in a body that that needs them, essentially. That is like a compost pile, which is essentially their role, is to decompose dead and decaying matter, right? So it really is a signal to us to know where we're at with our own health when we have these problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that
Yeah,
you
I
said,
mean,
oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Well, I believe, and I'm paraphrasing, it was something that I heard you say in an interview. It was very fascinating. Something about the body is equipped, like when we die, when our spirit leaves our body, we are equipped with the bacteria to decompose our body. That it's literally there, and that's just its role once we die. So that's really fascinating, right? It's not necessarily coming from outside of us. It was like I think a contained experiment, and body decomposes on its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are full, like we're literally full of all these microbes. Not just full of them inside, but on us. In like the eye is not sterile. The eye has its own microbiome. The all the orifices, all the different organ systems have different groups that have different roles for different tissue types. So to go and like use antibiotics, which is a terrible approach, to just kill off those things, is ignorance. Because think about it. Why would your body want to make an infection at all? Why would it do that? Think about the rationale. Well, there must be some dead, dying, or damaged tissue, and the microbes are going to go to work and decay and get rid of that tissue, eat that tissue, which is what it would do in the wild, in nature, and put things back into their base molecules so that the body could then dispose of them appropriately. We have different components in our body that do different roles, that engulf different things. We have white blood cells that do that. We have a whole milieu of hosts that will do that. You'll often see, as an example, people who've taken antibiotics and they've wiped out the bacterial colonies that have been set up basically since birth. And then the body is so brilliant, it goes, well, we can't use bacteria now, but we'll use fungus instead. And what will you see? You'll often see yeast infections or candida problems in those individuals, because that is the body going, well, we'll try to use something else to do the job, even if it's not going to do the job as best as the bacteria would have done. And that's why you need to reestablish the bacteria, and then health will ensue from that imbalance. So it's really about understanding that they all have roles to play, and you're trying to support the role rather than get rid of them. It's a very warped way of thinking about what's happening. It's like saying, I have my pile of garbage that I made, right? My compost that I made, or my waste. And the flies came and set maggots. And there's all these flies eating the garbage. Now I'm going to kill all the flies and any other microbe that's in there that's trying to break down the food. And I never want to let that break down. I want to preserve my compost pile forever. I want to just smell the reek of that for eternity and never put it back into soil. That makes absolutely no sense. But that's exactly what we're doing when we blame the bacterium or whatever the microorganism that's working that tissue for causing that problem. It's a cause and effect problem where it's been flipped 180, and we want to allow the body to do the job. We want to support it in doing it quickly so it can move along and not become a lingering problem. And infection's only a lingering problem in people that do not have appropriate resources. That means they don't have enough biochemistry to actually get the job done properly. Like imagine a construction site where you have all these workers standing around, and you haven't brought in the wood and the nails and the hammers and the tools to actually rebuild the building, or say tear down the old building in order to rebuild the new building. And they're just standing around drinking beer and eating sandwiches. You know what I mean? And that can be a problem, because if you're eating sandwiches and drinking beer, then you're going to have poops and you're going to make wastes, and the wastes are another thing that the body actually has to dispose of. So you don't want your helpers standing around eating sandwiches when they should actually be working, getting the job done efficiently and getting out of the way. And then that can cause other problems. So that's when we see real infection problems. And that's when antibiotics can step in and look like the hero, right? Say, see, he was all infected and they're all problems and all these symptoms, and he was going to die, and that's true. And antibiotics came in with as the hero and saved him. But it's a magic show because it didn't really save anybody. It just gave the illusion of getting rid of the problem when really the problem is still there. The building hasn't been torn down nor rebuilt. So that means there's still going to be a rotting, festering problem going on in the body that's unaddressed. And that means you might buy some time until you get reinfected again, or until you now have a new problem, like a fungal problem, because the bacteria is gone because you wiped it out, right? And that's when you see cancers develop, tumors, other growths, skin problems, all kinds of other disease states begin at that point. And what's fascinating is how they've done it is they can't seem to make connections. So because there's a time in which you give the heroic false suppressive medicine, and then a time where it looks like the person's fine, right? And then they get sick again, but it's actually the same disease, just a ticking time bomb. And then they'll say, oh, it came back again, or, it's a new thing or whatever. And they don't relate it back to that original event. And that's how the medical establishment's gone away with literally murder. Mm-hmm. Literally, they divorce the cause from the effect, from the drug leading down the path to doom or surgery or another severe medical intervention. I mean, or it's directly related and they still ignore it. That's what freaks me out the most, is when they give, say, a vaccine to a child and literally that child cannot stop the high-pitched screaming for 3 days after that event. And their parents say that their eyes will not make contact any longer with them, and that their speech has deteriorated, and they will be gaslit by the MD saying, well, it can't be that. That to me is clinical insanity. These people should be assessed and possibly institutionalized for doing what they're doing. That's narcissism, right? That's a personality disorder, a mental disorder in the diagnostic and statistic manual, for goodness sake. Mm-hmm. That's what they're doing to people, right? So if people can start to make these understand that the body is not an idiot, the body's smart, always. Why is the body making pain? Why is the body making inflammation? Why is the body making an infection? Why is the body making a detox expression called a flu or a cold? Why? I don't know. Maybe put crap in there. Maybe you don't put nutrition in there. Maybe you're constipated for a week. Maybe you don't drink water. Maybe you're stressed. Maybe you emotionally have problems where you can't think clear and you're depressed all the time. Or you constantly have tapes running in your head where you're berating yourself and doing damage to yourself. Mm-hmm. All of these things, right? Maybe that's what the problem is, and we should address it in a healthy manner where we put the nutrition in, we get the toxins out, and we deal with whatever roadblocks you're doing to your lifestyle, to your existence, right? And heal the traumas and release the Kraken. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's been a thing lately. I just had to say it at least once. Release the things that are there to actually help you, which are your microbiome and your somatids and your pleomorphic cells that the medical establishment literally ignores. It's alarming to me, really. It's not science.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we absolutely put way too much authority and trust in the medical establishment with helping us. I mean, it's not every doctor, but and I believe I heard you say that the real doctors, they leave the profession. They understand what's happening. The ones that really actually care, they leave the profession and they pursue naturopathy or functional medicine or natural healing. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I did want to touch on German new medicine as well, and the psychosomatic cause of disease. I do remember the first time that I ever heard this, it took a minute for me to go, really? No, how could someone with cancer how could it be something in their mind that had brought on the cancer? And, it took me a little while to truly understand that. And now we have so many people in a state of fear. You know, like they're waking up every morning and it's bad news on the television and bad news from their friends and family, and they're living in this state of fear, which is creating a chemistry of fear in their body. And so you know, as you had mentioned, a prolonged state of fear can cause disease. And so if you could talk a little bit about, you know, how important it is that we respond appropriately during this time, you know, mentally and emotionally, so that we don't cause for ourselves some kind of disease or, you know, unnecessary, you know, chronic disease, essentially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got a lot of stress and a lot of uncertainty right now. And a lot of people, they like to feel a sense of control in their life so that they feel a sense of security or safety. And if they don't have that, then they have low-level anxiety or fear states. And a lot of people that come into my store, a lot of people that are my patients, I notice an increase in anxiety-based illnesses and states. And really what they're creating in us, if we allow it, is more disease from the, just think of it from the stress alone. Imagine you're afraid or you have fear. What happens in the body is that fight or flight response, right? So you're going to be pushing your adrenal glands. You're going to be creating higher cortisol and adrenaline levels. That needs resources to actually create that, for one. So your vitamin C levels will decrease. Other nutrient levels will decrease, especially magnesium. And then we see a lot of what this flu season is, we're seeing a lot of people who are severely zinc and vitamin D deficient. And if you just gave them zinc and vitamin D and some extra magnesium, there wouldn't even be a flu season. People would detox through the liver without those symptoms, without those respiratory symptoms, or anosmia, where they lose their taste and their sense of smell. Or if maybe they stop chemtrail poisoning us, maybe that would be a great idea. And then we wouldn't have all these metals and particulates of aluminum to constantly have to detox out of our bodies. Then you add the stress onto there, and you're using more resources, and you're gumming up the blood. So the blood is becoming more thick or viscous, and it's not going to travel that well into the microcirculation. So you have larger vessels, and then it's like tree branches where it goes down into smaller and smaller vessels. And that microcirculation can become compromised. And when that occurs, that affects our nervous system even further, and it will affect the brain and also the gut. And the gut and the brain are connected. And so if your gut is off, your thinking is off. And so you create a lack of blood flow to the gut. Therefore, you're going to not make as many neurotransmitters for the brain. You create lack of blood flow to the brain. You're going to create more deposits in brain tissue, right? You're going to create states of forgetfulness and dementia and these sorts of things. So this is the biology of stress. And what we need to do is create a state where we're getting enough nutrition, we're taking care of our gut health, admit when we're feeling stressed, and do things that will help us have an outlet or a movement through that stress so we can get out of fight or flight and back into rest and digest. And so if you're going to eat, for example, don't just eat because it's lunchtime and you have to eat. Put yourself into a relaxed state before you eat. So breathe for 5 minutes. Nice deep nostril breathing before you're going to have a meal. What that says to your brain, to your adrenals, is I'm safe. It's okay. I can digest my food right now. I'm not going to have to run from a bear. I'm not going to have to hide. I can actually do something else, which is eat. So tell your brain it's okay and it's safe to eat food. That's just one simple thing people can do. You can also do things like exercise. I know, it's weird. Why do you think they want the gyms closed?
Yeah.
Why would you think they wouldn't promote exercise and yoga? Why would they even close the yoga studios as non-essential, when they're even more essential if you actually did have a pandemic, which we don't, but if you did, wouldn't you want, if you really did care about people and you had knowledge, wouldn't you want to promote vitamins and nutrients and organic food and yoga and long walks. And we could even, you know what, the government could sponsor even online if they believed contagion, which I don't, but if they did, everyone could have a free group meditation and yoga class free from the government. And then that's what would prevent people from getting ill. But you know, this is not about that. And anybody that has any thinking ability left, any logic, or any ability to actually research will understand that there's a huge agenda going on here, and it's not about your health, your wellness, your longevity, and your financial health. It's quite the opposite. And I think in part people are fearing the thing that's actually going to harm them in the long run. What you fear, you draw near, right? They're not turning their attention to the real villains, which are our governments that have been taken over and are pulling through all kinds of law, which isn't really law. It's just color of law to try and stop us from awakening. Because guess what? It's here. We're awakening one way or another, and they don't want that because they're done when we do. So the only way they can stop it is trying to kill as many of us as possible and try to keep as many sick and unable to mount the ascension in their minds. And that's through using poisons like vaccines, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. Poisons in our food, in our air, in our water, and also keeping us in that chemistry of fear. You know, you can't use your higher brain functions to, you know, use your mind to think clearly and think for yourself. And yeah, so it's when you think about it, it's such a refined kind of thing that they've done, you know, not to give them any props of any kind, because yeah, I've heard you say they're not of a human heart, essentially. And yeah, so it's great. It's such a great time to be alive, truly, like, because as you said, it's the Great Awakening, and we're turning eyes towards them. So it is very encouraging, because I am seeing people waking up. I am seeing kind of little lights turning on and starting to wake up to this stuff. You know, people like in my life, when they are struggling and they've asked me, like, how do you maintain a sense of hope or joy, like, in these times, right? Because it's just so uncertain. And my philosophy really is that essentially, I think that we knew that we were going to go through this when our souls incarnated into these bodies. I think we knew that we were going to go through this time, and it was going to be wild and chaotic potentially, but that we were made for this, that there's nothing that we can't handle. So it's sort of a time where I think that, you know, doing a lot of self-inquiry and sort of sharpening your own sword, and a lot of spiritual preparation for what could come, you know, not to, you know, foreshadow anything necessarily bad, but I do think that it is sort of the end of their reign. That's where I feel. I mean, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the yugas in the Hindu tradition, right? So it would show that we're coming up to the end of the Iron Age. And this would be kind of like different ages of consciousness of what humanity has gone through, and that we've been in Iron Ages for quite some time, and we're coming to the edge of it, coming into the Bronze Age, which then moves up into the Silver and the Gold. So I think it's, I mean, I don't know if that resonates with you, or if that's sort of part of your philosophy. Like, do you think that humanity could eventually experience something better here, you know, like a golden age?
Well, I don't think I would have come back, as I didn't need to. So I wouldn't have come back if it wasn't to assist in this time, because that's really fundamentally what it feels like for me, what my memories of who I am are. And also when I was little, I was already having spiritual experiences, and understanding that I came here from compassion, and that to do the service work and sort of be a guide for this awakening. And so it is written, it will happen. There's a lot of tearing down that has to occur. So we've got a ways to go still,
Mm-hmm.
before the golden age. But one thing that gives me hope all the time is that I know nature. I understand the natural world. And when you do, you can just walk away from fear, because the natural world is extremely powerful and resilient and destructive if need be, and to be respected. And if you respect nature, it will respect you back. And if you connect with nature properly and understand what that is, and then you will get gifts. And if you abuse it, and if you manipulate it, and if you tear it apart, there are repercussions. And this AI wet dream that the perpetrators have been trying to push forward in their smart cities, and all this synthetic garbage, this tagging of humanity, is not sustainable in nature. And that's the thing that I hold on to the most, that gives me the most hope, is that nature will say no. Nature will engulf and destroy that which is so far divorced from itself that it is non-recognizable to it. So it's just a matter of time when that will fall away, will be destroyed one way or another. There's all kinds of theories, predictions, and dates and things, and I don't go through any of that. I don't subscribe to any of it. I used to when I was younger and more naive, and thinking that it would come at a certain astrological point or a certain date. But I think it's really up to our collective soul force when we're ready, and that's when it happens, and that's when changes occur. And every day we get up and it's okay. Every day we get up and it's okay. And so that's how I say, every day I get up and it's okay. I've gone through things that I found very difficult, and I'm still here. That means that we can go through things that are very difficult and achieve triumph and victory through those things. And as a warrior spirit, I do come with my sword out, and I don't always candy coat things. It's not my role. It could be Kali Ma. It could be it could be swear words. It could be anything that someone could judge as not being appropriate for a health professional. But I focus on my inner direction and what my soul force says to do, no matter how it looks. And really, it's about surrendering to yourself, the self that is connected to the all, connected to God. And the more we surrender to that and let go of control, the easier this process will be for us. And it doesn't mean you don't stand up and say no. It actually invites stronger boundaries, and invites you protecting yourself and standing up for yourself. As someone who grew up as an empath with really inappropriate boundaries, I had to learn through a hard way how to not breach that, and how to allow other people's experiences. So it's a very delicate dance between us wanting to help those who are stuck in the illusion, in the Maya, and to allow them still their processing, while offering on the other side of the rainbow, the plate of plenty of truth, so that they may feast when they're ready to come to the table, right? So it's a dance. And sometimes I falter too, because I am human, and I feel the pain of the coming losses already, because one of the gifts that I came in with was precognition, which is a terrible gift to have. I don't wish it upon anybody to have precognition for things, but it's there for me, and it's come in handy for certain reasons. But I can feel a feeling before it's going to happen. And so I feel the feeling of the grief of the losses that are coming. And I find that quite challenging for me. So I'm pre-mourning certain losses, because not everyone is going to be able to walk away from their illusions and feast with us, right? And so for now, I'm in this state of where is the, like on the ocean in the ship, where do I direct the sail now?
Mm.
um, doing a bit of this, like, okay, is it this way, is it that way? What's interesting is when I'm in this unsure space, I just go, I'm in the unplugged state. So I'll just wait until I'm plugged into the new socket, and then I'll get the information. And so what's happening now is some really interesting collaborations, not just online, which I think has been happening for a while, but in person as well. And so I'm getting invited to more group collaborations that are done more covertly, if you will, and that we're beginning to make some arrangements and some alliances and some networking. And I suggest that you open yourselves up to that networking with lovely awakened people who are ready to take things to the next stage of our soul awakening, to the adulthood that we're heading toward. And for those who want to still pretend they're children, and play in their make-believe land, you can't force a child to come out of make-believe. They have to grow out of make-believe. And that's what a lot of the population is. They're living in their childhood fantasy. And that in that fantasy, the government loves them and cares for them and gives them all the things they need and takes care of the roads, and they pay taxes that pays for the roads and the hospitals and schools, which it doesn't at all. And that, all of these illusions, that's where they are at. And we're not. We know what that is. We know it's a Ponzi scheme and a scam, that we don't need government for anything ever, ever, that we're done with these institutions that think they have any right over our sovereignty and our bodies, and they don't. They don't even have legal right, lawful right, spiritual right, anything. And they can only take it if we give it to them, and we don't. So that's where I see it now. And I just really, if I feel fear, then I say, is this mine? Is it my fear if I'm just feeling a collective energy or not? And then I do meditation and I throw it into the violet fire. I give it to God. I do the cleansing, pour white light on it. And the more we do that, I think the more we can affect our own manifestation power. And then we're the ones who are going to create the golden age.
Right. Wow. Beautifully said, Amanda. Yeah, like a few things that you said there, those of us that are like so-called awake or so-called, like enlightened to some of this stuff, we kind of do have a moral obligation of some kind to help others wake up and to share this knowledge, because I do feel quite a calling to get out online and reach a bigger audience and speak more. And so there's that, of course, and hopefully we're planting seeds with people who are willing and who have fertile land to plant those seeds in. But you're right, there are some people who maybe in this lifetime, it's just not their lifetime to wake up. And sometimes the amount of investment that you would have to put into someone to help wake them up is so great that it actually would kill you, essentially. And so at that point, you just have to kind of step back and allow their process. Your relationship might part, and that's just, a natural part of it. And that can be hard for many people to, lose friends and lose family members to differing opinions. But yes, at some point we do have to go forward, with courage and knowledge and love, and carry forward on our own. And like you said, with getting into community, you said we don't necessarily need governance, and you really don't. When you're in a tribe scenario, when you're in a community scenario, everything is worked out kind of naturally, as long as you have some awakened people, in that tribe. So we're definitely better taken care of in the tribe scenario.
We have to be careful, and I think this is why, at least in my path, in my journey, that I've studied cults. I've even written a book on cults. I just haven't gone into editing, publishing of it, but I was connecting the cult with the medical cult, so how it's run like a cult. and that I studied a lot of communities that wanted to leave society. Now, granted, a bunch of them were religious in nature, so they already had a lot of cult-like features, like, for example, charismatic leader or something like that. But now we have to think about the way a tribe would function, and that there has to be some level of a core of the tribe that is mature enough to handle some of the more challenging aspects, or they're mature enough to be able to make decisions, or they're connected enough with their skill set to be able to invite new ideas and then have everyone feel that they're a part of that. And so I think I've seen all kinds of different structure of how little communities can work. And what I think is that there's so many subtypes, and they all can work depending on the location and the type of culture that's involved in that group. So it might work with a couple of centralized leaders in a certain group of people, and then in yet another group it wouldn't. So it had to be a different structure, because I was trying to find like the one perfect way of doing it, like having it so it would work. And it seems like there's multiple ways that would work. But one of the ways that I felt that I would like to have it work was in like a council idea. So you have a council of say 12 or 13 individuals, and that there's a bit of a council representation, but the council representation is fluid, so it can change at any point in time. And that there's a type of consensus in that council, but it's done through meditation. So it's not an ego-based, argument-based discussion. It's a clear presentation of what the energies are in general that are felt. And if everyone does that, then the consensus comes. It just shows up. You don't need to vote. You don't need to have an argument or a debate. It's just yes. It's just yes, that's the feeling. And now we put words to the feeling, and this is how we're going forward with it. And everyone takes responsibility for how things are moved forward. So it's interesting that I worked with a spiritual teacher for a year who had a whole vision for community living that was marked down on paper. It was very specific. And I always wondered why that happened. Why did I live with a spiritual teacher for a whole year that had that knowledge and imparted it to me? And now I kind of starting to see the reason of why that happened. So I think we have to get lawful our standing, change our legal standing to landed. So we have to land on the earth, not in their jurisdiction. So we have to change and do paperwork to say, basically, effectively, screw off. Ciao. Enjoy your communism and whatever, but we're going to be over here, and we are treaty states that we can travel freely. We have to use your roads because it's the only way through. And so here's the agreement, just like any tribe would do. There's a set of agreements, and that's it. And then we just protect ourselves as they do what they do. It might get messy at some point. They do try to break spiritual law. They do try to infiltrate and do those sorts of things. But again, if you work on frequency, then that's less likely to occur. And I don't know how many people are ready there yet. In the whole truth community and so forth. I think we still have a lot to do, and a lot of people who still need to get rid of their ego and their personal agendas and that sort of thing, that kind of got me a little bit on the depression side of things when I realized that there's not very many who are awake and fully spiritually realized and ready for that kind of stuff. But we're getting there. I still feel like we're getting there. Yeah.
And they're starting to come out of the woodwork a little bit, right? I mean, people are reaching out to you. I've made new friends that are, pretty awake, and yeah, so it's, I guess we're on our way there, but like you said, we do have a lot of work yet to do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll just keep, I think the main thing for me is remembering to do the work and not slip on it. Like, don't get caught up in, I make all these products, I do all these things, right? I'm seeing patients, I'm running this huge business, I'm, all of these things are happening, and I have to remember what is most important, and it's connecting to source and remembering to continue to connect to source and connect to nature, the up and the down, right? Connect in that way, and um, don't let it slip up, and don't let a hedonistic idea take hold, because this is where we slipped up in the beginning. Had it good. We had the crystal age, and we got sloppy. We let things get too cozy, and that's when the shadow begins to sneak back in, and we get into all of these dark ages and things that we've gone through.
Right.
Which I'm looking forward to a renaissance of all of the history being, coming, the truth of history coming back, and us unearthing some really big stuff, because I'm excited for that stuff. And I know I'm creating a warrior child. No one's gonna mess with that kid. So I see other families, they're not vaccinating their kid, they're not poisoning their children. They're
Mm-hmm.
strong kids. They don't get sick. They don't have diseases. They're genius level because they're not poisoned.
Right.
And these the new children are something. I'll tell you, they're
Yeah.
whippersnappers.
Yeah.
My daughter's 9, and she could probably run a household on her own almost at this point, I think, because you know what I
Right.
mean. It's just built into her somehow. The tools that they're going to need when they're adults.
Right.
So fascinating.
Wow. Beautiful. Yeah. Something you said there, I'll just finish with a quote. I believe it was Mark Passio. He said that when morality decreases, control increases. And when morality increases, freedom increases. So
Hmm.
I do hope that that's where we're headed. um, and Amanda, I just love everything that you have to share. Every time that I hear you speak about natural law, I really feel that you've got such a great comprehension of that. So I'd love to, maybe in the future we could jump back on and do another interview and talk about your knowledge around common law, but also about natural law and sort of the philosophy behind that, and how we can align ourselves to natural law in order to, bring the golden age on a little quicker.
Yeah, I think it's going to be crucial for people who are not going to take the mark of the beast to get around and just, eat and get heat and get, basic needs met. Because many of us will not do that, and many of us will not just do something out of convenience, like we don't wear masks, we don't comply, right? That they're going to make it more and more difficult for those of us to function in their society, because we're now outliers to their New World Order. So basically, we need to understand how to drive a car without a license and not get pulled into their jurisdiction, how to drive a car without insurance, how to own a house without insurance, how to own land and get landed status on a piece of land without dealing with mortgages or banks or any of that stuff. So there's going to be a whole huge growing movement of those types of necessities for those in the breakaway society to continue to live free and still get basic needs met. And if you want to go get a haircut, you should be able to get a haircut, right? But maybe we'll just be cutting our own hair. Interestingly enough, I've been doing a little bit of hair cutting. I'm like, I guess I'll be doing that. I don't
Same.
know. Okay.
You
um,
know, you're such a DIYer, and so am I. So yeah, I think we'll be fine.
we'll be fine. We'll be fine on the hair cutting, and we'll do each other's pedicures. How about that?
Yeah.
You know, guys, just but for things like traveling, which driving is actually traveling, and you can travel freely. The license was brought in because of the commercial aspect. So you needed a license if you were going to be driving commercial items to and fro, for example. That's why licenses were brought in at all. And then insuring the goods that you're traveling with, insurance came in. But we don't need any of that because we should be able to travel freely.
Mhm.
And once you explain that I'm not using this for commercial exchange or anything like that. I'm just traveling. There are grandfathered laws that protect people's rights in that regard that can be used. But even so, most of these goons are actually ignoring law. And what's wild, the thing that I know we got to end in 5 minutes, but what blows my mind of all of this is how many of these sleeping people are walking into liability. I can't believe it. I mean, by denying law, they're actually walking into liability. They're making themselves liable. This is what's, I can't believe it. If you say you have a say you have a medical exemption, okay, to not wear a mask, which does harm and never helps anything, never prevents anything. So all masks cause harm. So, but I'm saying someone who says they have asthma and they can't wear masks, right? And they're being denied services or entry. That individual who's done that, they broke the law and they are liable to be sued. I don't think they get that. You know what I mean? And that blows because most people in this world are afraid of liability. They're afraid of being sued. They'll do anything not to get sued. And here we have them, they're so afraid of the illusion that they'll walk right into lawsuits. It's just, to me, that is just, I watch that and I go, wow, I'm shocked. I really am shocked. They're all going to get their asses sued, and they are. And it's growing every day. I'm involved with multiple lawsuits. Right. We can't keep up with the lawsuits. So they are criminals. And once you get, if that ever happens, get their name. You get the name of the employee or the Karen walking around Walmart or whatever. You take their names because you can sue them because they can't do that. Right? It's against the law. It's that one just gets me. I watch that and I'm amazed. I really am. Yeah.
Yeah. Like denying another human's right to buy essential food for their family, unless they wear a face diaper. Yeah. It's pretty unbelievable. But you're right. People don't know. They don't know there's liability there.
No.
Yeah. They're so terrified of the government coming down on them that they'll treat others so harshly. Yeah. Wow.
Amazing.
Well, yeah. Well, Amanda, this has been a wonderful chat. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. And yeah, I would really love to go a little bit deeper into natural law and things like cause and effect and love thy creator, love thy neighbor, and anything outside of that is breaking natural law, which is the real law of attraction and that kind of thing. So so hopefully we get another chance to talk again. Thank you so much for your time. And for right before we go here, where can my followers find you? I know you've been deplatformed recently, which sucks. I know everyone's been getting the chop lately. So where can they find you?
Well, I'm at yumnaturals.com. I'm at yummy.doctor. So the .doctor is like a .com. So it's yummy.doctor. That's where my blog and that's where all my videos, I'm going to have my own server. You can't shut that down. On my own website. That's coming soon. And I have healingwithdmso.com. That's simply for my book, which you can also find on Yum Naturals. I'm on Vimeo. I'm on Library. I do have a new YouTube. YouTube's just going to be for really safe stuff that won't get problems, community strikes. And then I'll just do mini videos and say, hey, go over to Vimeo or go over to Hyper or go over to wherever, all these other places that we're being spread out into. I'm on BitChute as well. So, until I get my server up and running. So there's lots of places. You can just Google me and tons will come up. And it's Amanda with an H, Amandha, just so people know the spelling. Yeah. But thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And we'll do it again.
Yeah, totally. And everyone, go check out Amanda's site, Yum Naturals, for all your Christmas gifts. She has some amazing products, particularly Facelift in a Jar. I'm actually 57 years old.
Oh, see that?
It's amazing.
Gorgeous. Gorgeous.
All right, Amanda, thanks so much. All right,
Thank you
we'll
so
chat
much.
again soon. Bye.
Okay. Bye.